Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. From the greatest things that bring peace of mind to the heart is the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah mentions in Surah al Ra'd, chapter number 13 of the Quran, Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. And from the greatest remembrance is the Quran. Allah mentions, Inna anzalna ilayka dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun. We have sent down the remembrance to you, here meaning the Quran, and we will protect it. And so from the greatest remembrance that brings peace of mind to an individual's heart is the Quran. And we're accustomed to reciting the Quran, but it's also important for us to reflect on the Quran, that we understand what the text means, and then we reflect on that meaning and how it pertains to our lives in particular. And so from the surahs that we often read is Surah al Falaq. And Surah al Falaq, the chapter of the daybreak, the second to last chapter of the Quran, contains many benefits for us, especially in moments like these of widespread hysteria and the pandemic and people really not knowing. The real fear seems to be, and Allah knows best, not simply the destructive nature of the disease, but just not knowing how to, or virus, but just not knowing how to deal with it and what's it all about and what it can do and the extent of its harm. And so one of the things that brings peace of mind at moments like these is to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rabbul Falaq. And so we have, again, a few reflections here with Rabbul Falaq. The first reflection is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here describes himself as the Lord, as the master of the daybreak. And the daybreak, when the sun begins to rise, giving an indication of the morning time, people normally feel a certain comfort and peace of mind that comes just with the fact that it's morning. So the darkness can be very scary if a person's in, for example, in the woods, if a person's in just in the streets of society. Being outside at dark is not very comforting. But there's something that's comforting just about being out in the daylight that just brings comfort to people, even though the very same evils and the very same dangers that exist in the nighttime in general, they can exist in the daytime. But there's something about the daytime that makes us feel comfortable to go outside, that makes us feel able to get on with life. And so if we feel that comfortable with light, in the sense that it really doesn't protect us, it's not as if the sun creates this invisible barrier around us that now gives us extra added protection, but just the comfort and peace of mind that we feel, the strength and the confidence that we feel when it's morning. I mean, you even find amongst children who are afraid of the dark, that just having that small night light there makes a difference. Even though it doesn't change reality, how much more comfort and peace of mind and tranquility should we feel with the Lord of the daybreak? If we feel that comfortable with something that's really not that consequential, that really doesn't have an effect on danger and protecting us, then how much more comfort should we feel with the Lord and Master of the daybreak? The second reflection is the idea of light itself. And so when we think about darkness, we can think about material or physical darkness. That's one aspect. But there's another darkness, and that's the darkness of the heart. It's the darkness of doubt. It's the darkness of not knowing. It's the darkness of confusion. It's a darkness of selfishness, which we see in this day and times, where people become so concerned and so afraid that they forget their fellow human being. They forget their brother in humanity. And so people go and take everything off the shelves and don't think, hey, there are other people who might need things, who may be going without, who may not have the luxury of being able to stockpile their houses. And they live paycheck to paycheck. So that darkness that comes over our hearts, where there's that confusion and that moment of disorientation, it's the light of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's the light of his speech. It's the light of Iman that He places in the hearts of the believers that helps us to be able to see. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. Those who have a taqwa, when the shaitan touches them with the fear that he puts in their hearts, with forgetfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with that overreaction based upon emotion, Allah blesses them to remember, and then they are able to see. And some of these scholars have mentioned that the idea that he says mubasirun instead of yubasirun, the fact that he says that they are seers and not that they see, indicates a sense of permanency, that Allah places that ability to see permanently in their hearts. And the idea of being able to see, the heart or the mind has an eye, just like we physically have eyes. And even if a person has 20/20 vision, that 20/20 vision is not sufficient to be able to see properly. In order to be able to see properly, you have to have light. And as Allah says in Surah An-Nur, the chapter named Light, chapter number 24 of the Quran, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَجْعَلِ اللَّهُ لَهُ نُورًا فَمَا لَهُ مِن نُورٍ. Whomever Allah does not give light to, this light is the light of Iman, the light of being able to see things as they are, then that person will not have light. And so from the benefits of Surah al Falaq is just how the light illuminates and at least enables you to see what's in front of you. A third benefit that we get is that light itself, because people normally do evil in darkness, that's the normal way things work, and because normally there are certain creatures that only come out at night because they like the shelter of the darkness, that generally when the light does appear and come out, that those creatures tend to go back to where they came from because they don't like light. And so just as the natural light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, just as it pushes evil and its people and its creatures oftentimes back to where they go, that the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He gives us of Iman and what He gives us of confidence in Him, that He repels in the light that He gives us of Iman and understanding who He is and calling on Him, He is the one who repels that evil and that confusion, and He repels evil and its creatures and its people. The fourth benefit, or the fourth reflection that we have, is that there's no doubt, no matter how long the night is, that the light is coming. Again, during the winter solstice, it is near the end of December. That is when we have the longest night of the year. In spite of that, no matter how long that night is, no matter how many hours it is, there is confidence that the morning must come. Because this is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that no matter how dark things get, the light must come. And so for the Muslim, in these dark moments when we don't know what's going to happen financially, when we're concerned about our health and everything else, that we have confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based upon our Iman. That because we know who Allah is, we have full confidence that He is going to bring relief, that He is going to take care of this pestilence and every other problem and difficulty that we face in life. And so when we recite this surah, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, say I seek refuge in the Lord of the Daybreak, that we think about the confidence that we have in the daybreak and all of the good that the day brings, and we think that that daybreak has a Lord who brings even greater goodness and even greater comfort and even greater peace of mind. And then notice how He generalizes in the next ayat, min sharri ma khalaq, from every evil created thing. Anything created with evil, we seek refuge with Rabb al Falaq. We have confidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can remove it and will remove it, that any difficulty, as Allah mentions in the Quran, inna ma'al usri yusra. With every difficulty comes ease. With every darkness comes light. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to remove things. And then in the rest of the surah, He mentions specific elements that have specific aspects of evil connected to them. And He emphasizing the fact that no matter how great the evil is, no matter how hidden the evil is, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to remove it and to bring it to light and to expose it and to bring after it days of happiness and relief and comfort. He mentions the witches who do their witchcraft. He mentions those who have envy and jealousy inside of their hearts. Allah knows it, and He's able to protect us from it, and He's able to even prevent. He's able to even block that envy and that hatred from even presenting itself in the individual. As Allah mentions about Musa alayhi salam, وَأَلْقَيْتُ عَلَيْكَ مَحَبَّةً مِنِّي, and I placed upon you a love from myself, that even Fir'aun, even though Pharaoh had commanded and ordered and legislated that all the boys of Banu Israel in that year be killed, when Musa was in his very house, Allah placed a love that he couldn't deny in his own heart, and because that He spared the boy, and it ended up being a cause of his own destruction. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to have greater confidence in Him than we have in the daybreak, and that just as the daybreak brings us relief and comfort, that we find comfort in Him, that just as the daybreak repels evil and its creatures and its people, that He repels from us the evil things that we fear. And just as we know that the morning and the daybreak will come, that we have confidence that His relief and that His goodness and His mercy shall prevail. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.